the game on the line, you can't fold and you can't bend. Y'all be playing it safe and I be going for the win. Remember back when they was doubting on the kid. Now they tuned in cause my game too legit.
Hey, what's going on, you guys? Welcome back to Forgiven AF Podcast. This is a second chance podcast that we use for marketing material for our mentorship program. We have an awesome show today. I'm super excited. Jose Vazquez on the show with us today, who has been a huge part in our lives and has done some really cool things. So I'm excited to get into this interview. Real quick, we had 2 more kids last week complete their community service and get their shoes. So remember I said at the last time I talked about it, we had only had like 4 kids complete their community service. So it was really cool to have a couple more kids get it done, because in December we were so busy, we decided to let the kids do their community service on their own. And we didn't have the turnout of the completions that I really wanted, but we got a couple more come in at the end of the month. So that's really good. We also, before we get to this interview with Jose, I want to thank him he got us like 25 tickets, I think it was, to the Rangers game. Jose is a strength and conditioning coach for the Rangers, and he got us like 20 tickets to the game. So the boys had a blast. It was really cool. This was, I think it was maybe October. So I just wanted to thank you for doing that. That was really cool. So Jose Vazquez is a really good friend of our family. His wife was a member at our first gym, and I'll never forget when we found out that her husband happened to be the strength coach for the Rangers. I was so intimidated to meet you, man. I was so nervous. I remember when you came in for that first time, and you and I think it was like you and Justin were doing jiu-jitsu. Remember that? Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my God. So not only am I terrified of this guy, now he's over here kicking my trainer's butt in jiu-jitsu. But anyways, Jose, thank you for being here, man. Could you give our listeners kind of like a quick rundown and go into the detailed aspect of it, like you said, because I think that's really cool, people knowing where you're from and how the whole story started.
Yeah. So my name is Jose Vazquez. I am originally from Puerto Rico. So I grew up in Puerto Rico till about the age of 12. My parents, my brother and my sister and I, we moved to Miami in 1982 when I was 12 years old. We moved to Miami at a time where there was a lot of Cuban refugees coming into Miami area. There was a big influx of Latin American nationalities coming into the area. So in a way, it was kind of easy because everyone spoke Spanish, but it was also very hard because I didn't speak English very well. I needed to speak English to go to class, and so that was a little bit of a challenge when we moved from Puerto Rico to Miami. And so speaking English was a big challenge through junior high and a little bit through high school.
At that time, I don't mean to interrupt you. At that time, was Puerto Rico already a state of the United States then? When did that happen?
No, well, Puerto Rico is called the territory of the U.S. I can't recall the history or when it became a territory, but I know the whole idea of statehood has been up in the air for many years. It goes up to vote and it gets turned down. And as far as I know, Puerto Rico is still a territory.
So
I know they're
really
not
random.
a state.
But it was pretty easy it wasn't hard to come.
Oh, yeah. So, okay. So, I know what you're saying. So, because we're a territory, we don't have to have a special visa. We don't, like other countries like Cuba or Venezuela, Dominican, we don't have to have a visa. We can just come and go. So we're American citizens.
Yeah.
But because it's a territory.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I know what you're getting at. So it was easy to come over and all that, but it was still a challenge because it's still American culture with a Spanish flavor. And, but right away I got into sports and that always creates a social structure when you join teams. And so I always had a passion for music and sports. And so I found myself with a little bit of both. And I just got into it. Anything I wanted to try, I would try it. I wasn't the best, but I was always competitive enough so that I could make the team and find myself playing sports with other kids, and that became my peer group, and I assimilated to the school system or to the school, even though I didn't speak English very well. Junior high again, my sports got better. I got into football. that was going well. Through football is when I discovered weights. I like the way that football is structured, the way that practices are run. You line up, you stretch, you warm up, you lift weights after. I like the whole idea of football and the way that it is structured. And so I discovered weights, and I realized, for my size, I was pretty strong. I was as strong as some of the linemen at that time. And so I fell in love with weights, and so that became a passion of mine. Exercise became a passion of mine when I started playing high school football. But I also played baseball, and between the two, I continued to play through high school. I was doing pretty good on both. My original idea was to walk on to the University of Central Florida to play football. I had everything lined up, financial aid, everything, ready to go. But as it turns out, I had a really good baseball season my senior year. And I know that in Florida, junior colleges are pretty good programs. So you can have a good year at a junior college in Florida, and it's a high-level baseball. And so you can get drafted right out of junior college and go on. And as I got into it a little bit more, and I realized, what, maybe I do have a little bit of talent for baseball. So let me stick with baseball. And so I played junior college baseball. Did really well those 2 years at Central Florida Community College. Then I got a scholarship to the University of Tennessee. I always wanted to go to a big SEC school or a school with a big football program because those schools are fun. They have a lot of activities, and so that was my dream, was to play for a top Division I school. And so as it turns out, I got a scholarship to University of Tennessee. I played there 2 more years, and after that, I was drafted by the St. Louis Cardinals. Played a few years there in the minor leagues, and then I realized probably not going to make it. But I always had a passion for baseball. I had a passion for exercise. I had a passion for getting better. Whatever I got my mind set on, I wanted to get better, and it was just an itch that I always tried to scratch. And so when I realized that perhaps baseball wasn't going to turn out, and at the same time I had gotten engaged and gotten married, I realized, I need to look at plan B. And so I started to look into becoming a college baseball coach. The few people that I talked to, they didn't give me much hope. So I was like, well, you know what? I'm just going to go back to school and get a master's. And so I decided to get a master's in physical therapy. It took me a year to get my grades up, got into physical therapy school. Graduated from physical therapy school. We moved back to Tennessee, where my wife's family's from. Right away when I got back, I had a job at a clinic, but at night I started coaching kids, training kids, and I realized, this is pretty cool. I like this a little bit better than being in the clinic. And so I set out to develop a business plan to put a business together. So a buddy and I put a business plan together, and we were about to start our own business when I met Tom House. He was a former pitching coach here with the Rangers in the mid-'90s. He was actually Nolan Ryan's pitching coach.
That's cool.
At the time. Not at that time, but he was Nolan's pitching coach in the mid-'90s when Nolan was here. And we struck up a conversation, and he recommended me for a job that was open with the New York Mets at the time. And a few months later, I got a call from the Mets, went and interviewed, and long story short, I guess I must have done well in the interview. The general manager liked me, the trainers liked me, and so even though I had no experience in professional baseball, they decided to give me the job. And so I thought, well, let's take this job. Most of those jobs are pretty volatile. You're in a couple of years, then you're done. So I told my wife, okay, let's try this for a few years. I'll make a name for myself. I'll come back to Knoxville, and then I'll start my business like I was planning. Well, that didn't work out that way. Right now, I'm going in my 22nd year of Major League Baseball as a strength coach. And so I've enjoyed a very, very long career. I've done a lot of cool things. Been to the World Series twice. We came up short, 2010 and 11. I went to the All-Star game as the strength coach for the American League team. I've been to Taiwan, Japan, to do speaking. I went to Japan with the Major League All-Star team, and I believe either 17 or 18, I can't recall. But I've had some really, really good players. I've worked with Hall of Famers. I've traveled everywhere with baseball, and as a kid in Puerto Rico, throwing the ball around in the house with against the wall, I couldn't have never imagined that I would have this career that I've had. So I have been blessed, and I look back in the way that God has moved in my life and how where I'm at. It's pretty much, for me, it's a miracle that God gave me these opportunities and blessed me and taken me this far.
That's so freaking cool. I really like the fact it's kind of like that American dream, just a young kid from Puerto Rico, never really probably thinking like, oh, I'm going to go to the United States, I'm going to play baseball, and then, and it just shows with discipline and hard work, none of that was handed to you. Like none of that was handed to you. You had to put in the work to get to that level. So that's really cool. You have 3 awesome kids. I can attest to that 100%. You've raised 2 beautiful, amazing girls that are they have a great head on their shoulders. They're very well spoken. They're very, they don't, I don't even know how to describe it. You have great kids. All your kids are awesome. So you've done an awesome job as a dad. One of the questions I wanted to get into is how hard has it been being a husband and a parent while having to do all the traveling and all the crazy stuff that you've seen?
Yeah, it's hard. I guess it's the first thing. Yeah, I would say it's hard. But I, through prayer and just asking God to bless my situation, I really believe that through His grace, He has helped me become the best father that I can be under the circumstances. I remember years ago I was listening to a sermon by Joyce Meyer, and she was speaking about her anxiety about being a good mother, having the job that she had, traveling the world, preaching and doing that. And she said that she had a day that she was just wrestling with God about that situation. And God told her, you do my job, you do what I call you to do, and I will take care of your kids. And there was a time where I had that moment after I listened to that. I was like, you know what, God, every time I get down on myself because I'm gone all the time, and you know what, I'm going to trust you that I'm going to do my job the best way that I can. I'm going to do the job that you've given me to do. And then I'm going to trust you with my kids. And so that gave me a lot of peace. There's still challenges and there's still a lot of things that go on that are difficult. But overall, I found it good that, God kind of gave me that peace of mind that, you do what I called you to do, which is to be a strength coach and do the best you can with that. I'll take care of your kids. And in my opinion, he has.
You've done it. Yeah, he has, and you have, and your wife has for sure. Like having a wife like you have definitely is a huge, huge benefit to the whole process that Ann has been able to, hold it together. But what I really love about watching you from the outside is how intentional you are when you are home with your kids. You know what I mean? Like when you're gone so much, and then when you do get home, to just sit on the couch and be like, oh, I've been working, like, is not you at all. You know what I mean? Like, you're with Kian, you're with the girls, you're with your family, and that's real commendable. So I really do respect that. And I've gotten a lot out of watching you with that. Go into the next subject. Well, actually, I want to tell a quick story real quick. So Helena, one of his daughters, who is now playing college volleyball, I remember when we first started talking about me training her, right? And before you would let me, but you came and basically told me, this is how you're going to train my daughter, right? For one, it was the biggest boost for me as a trainer that you trusted me to train your daughter. You know what I mean? So I can't even tell you how much that meant to me and the confidence that it built in me that you trusted me to train her. And then you came and you showed me like some just, hey, watch out for this type of stuff when you train my daughter. But I guess you said to me, you were like, good luck with this one. You're like, good luck with this one. We'll see how long she keeps this up. You know what I mean? And you didn't mean that in a mean way towards her. You were just saying, hey, we've done this a long time. And I think me and Helena worked out for 2 years before she left. So that was really cool, you know? But I just wanted to tell that story because how much it meant to me that you trusted me with that. So that's all I was getting with that.
Well, if I may add something about being intentional, I think that being intentional with a family, it's in my opinion, it's not that hard. It's just a matter of having a set of values of things that you value. And I remember somebody asked me, like, you know, I've done similar interviews like this, and people always want to know, you know, what do you do every day? And I said, you know what I do? Like, okay, number one, I pray. I read my Bible. And number two, I always take inventory of my family. I check on my wife. How you doing? What's going on with you? Not with the bills or not with the, you know, cable TV or whatever. How are you doing? How are things going? What's going on with the kids? Anything personal or anything that they're struggling with? I do that every day.
That's so good.
Every day, whether I'm home or on the road, I ask them how they're doing. Because in my opinion, it's not about, we all get busy. We all have busy lives and we have a lot of things going on. But sometimes we take for granted that they might be feeling something and you might be the only person that can help them at that moment to get that out. And the last thing I've ever wanted as a father or husband is for my family to carry things with them that they could have easily just...
That you could have helped them with.
That I could have helped them with, or I could have helped them just listening so that they can get it out of their system. Sometimes it's just about getting it out of the system, because it's not like I can't fix anything.
Yeah.
But like, for example, like with Helena, you know, just having her work out with you, I know that she is sensitive to correction.
Yeah. From
me. She's always been intimidated by the way I talk sometimes, especially when it came to the workout part.
Yeah.
So I knew that if she could find someone that she didn't feel like that, then the idea was for her to get in shape, not for me to train her.
Yeah.
The benefit is for her. So if she's getting it somewhere else, for me, that's a win. So I am not that kind of... I've also realized that the biggest failure for me, from a father standpoint, especially the ones that are coaches, they don't know when to stop being a coach. They don't know how to separate the coach and the dad part. So I've worked on that, because I knew that with her, I needed to be more of a dad and less of a coach.
And that goes into one of the questions I had for you. Do you have to change your coaching style? Or I'm trying to think of how to change. You have to change the way, because you're on the road and you're coaching, right? And you're dealing with players and you're dealing with athletes and you're dealing with egos and you're dealing with... So how do you like flip that switch when you come home and not treat your kids like you're treating your players? Does that make sense?
Yes.
I mean, it's kind of what you just said, but there's probably more to it.
Yes. When I was younger, I probably was a little more emotional about that stuff. You know, I'd come home and been frustrated with the stuff that we were dealing with the players on the road, and then I'd see the same behavior with my kids, and then I would snap at them. And then I thought that I was okay in doing that, because in my mind I thought I love my kids more, so it means more. I need to discipline them more. I need to correct them more. But I realized that over time that the way you deliver a message is crucial into the way that it's received. And also because my family needs me more than the players do, I realized I need to be more gentle with my family. I need to be kinder. I need to be more patient. The same patience that I share with them, I need to show with my family even more so. And so I realized I need to find ways to change the way I am or the way I talk when I come home. I can't bring the coaching hat home with me. So I learned how to take off the coaching hat, and when I walked in the door, it was dad mode, and I was going to figure out a way to try to catch up with what was going on that week, catch up with what's going on, the events of the family, and just trying to jump in and try to get right back in there.
I like that about being more gentle, because you don't want to come home and be the dictator. You've been gone, and all of a sudden you just come home and it's like angry, and it's almost like, man, I don't want dad to come home. You know, like dad's going to come home and be angry. Yeah. So that's good. Let me see. One of the questions that I have, so when you first came into the league, right, and you were coaching for the Mets, you were young. You were closer to these players' ages, right? Mm-hmm. So over the years, now that you've been in the league for 22 years, and now you've distanced yourself in age from the kids coming into the league. Now they're pretty much kids, right? Now you look at them as pretty much kids. They're 18 or 22 years old. I guess the question was that what have you seen as far as like, what's the difference coaching players coming into the league now compared to when you first started coaching?
Yeah. So when I first started coaching, I was at an age where I was close to them. So I was somewhat of a peer as far as age.
Yeah, that's how I look at it.
But I also didn't have as much experience, and I didn't know much. The one thing I did know is how baseball players are. So I always had this intuition of how to talk to those guys and how to get along with them and develop relationships with them. So my relationship with them back then, even though it was somewhat of a peer-to-peer type of thing, I learned that I needed to connect with them. I needed to develop a relationship with them before I was going to give them any kind of exercise advice.
That's good.
And so I realized at a young age that the relationship and the connection was more important than the exercise itself.
Yeah.
And, but I was still young, and I still probably the way I communicated probably needed some polishing. As I gotten older and had kids, my kids got older, my players are younger, I'm older. The biggest difference I would say is the level of patience that I have now versus then is greater.
Yeah.
And so for some of these guys, I treat them, I actually look at them as like my kids. I can see the immaturity in them. I can see the insecurity in them. I see the lack of life experience in them. And so I have a different perspective in the way I look at them. But overall, the players are the players. I mean, these are elite, God-given, God-talented players that they're just so good. You cannot get your head around it. But they're people just like us that have insecurities, and fears and anxieties. And now that I have a little more life experience, a little more patience,
grace.
I mean, more grace. It's a little easier for me now. So the message might be the same. I'm probably a little more patient and more gentle.
It reminds me of, what is that saying is, people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care.
Exactly.
So that kind of reminds me of what you were saying in the beginning, where you were like, I had to build the relationship first and show them that I'm not just here to tell them what to do, and then before you start giving them advice. So that's a cool aspect. How about differences in like, what we're dealing with the mentorship program is like difference in even communication styles, right? Like we're a little bit older, like it's almost easier for us to make a phone call. You know, sometimes people don't, but I feel like these kids nowadays, even 18, 19-year-old professional players, it's like they even communicate differently, right? Like almost like text message always, like less talking on the phone. Do you notice anything like that with the players?
Oh yeah. Like the communication is different for sure. Technology has taken over, and it sometimes it could be a conduit to communication, but in my opinion, it's still somewhat of a distraction.
Yeah.
But just, you know, I find that there are still guys out there that have a level of their approach. I would say I don't say maturity, but level of approach to communication that they'll put the phone down, they'll talk to you face to face, they'll look at you in the eye, they'll shake your hand. There's still a few of those.
Yeah, that probably comes from good coaching in the past.
Exactly.
You know?
Either their family or coaching. There's a few of those. But the majority of these guys now, they don't look at you in the eye, they don't shake your hand. Everything's a fist bump, and a text, an emoji, a thumbs up.
That's what. Yeah. That's
so
we get that too.
And so, I think the older generation, I guess, or call it whatever.
That's it.
The people like us that maybe grew up a little different, I think we need to extend them a little more grace, because at the end of the day, if your message is not received, then we're failing. There's a saying that you haven't taught until they have learned, or it's kind of but when you communicate with these guys and they do what you said, or you see what you taught them, then great. You have the feedback like, okay, I communicated properly.
Yeah.
But there are many times where I'll instruct something or say something, and I walk away and I see that they're doing something completely different. I was like, you did not understand me at all. And so at that point, I got two choices. I either say, this guy is a dummy and he's not coachable, or you know what, I need to rephrase this and I have to try it again and continue the conversation until I see that he gets it.
Yeah, that's humility. That's you being able to say, you know what, maybe instead of just blaming, a lot of people just want to blame someone else. Oh, he's dumb. He didn't understand it. He'll figure it out on his own. Or saying, you know what, maybe I could have approached it differently. Let me come back. And that's the same thing that we can all take out of this is sometimes we might even tell our kids something and we're explaining it in a way that makes sense to us, but they don't get it. Mm-hmm. And then we just get mad because they didn't get it right. Instead of saying, you know what, maybe I could have explained that better. Let me try this again. And that just goes into grace and humility. I think that's all good. One thing that I think is real cool is, and I've seen this firsthand with you, I remember watching your relationship. The first time I took Caden to a game with you, and this is so cool, like, because I'm a huge Cole Hamill fan because he won the World Series for Philly. You had Cole giving Caden batting practice at the stadium, right? That was like the coolest thing ever. I have video of it. But just watching your relationship with these men and how you talk about God and how you're not scared to bring up Jesus to these players and the way you mentor some of these young players. I'm not going to, like we said, I'm not going to go into names of these guys because I don't know what sort of relationships and what you're allowed to talk about. But there's some big name players that you've been like mentored, like through their career. And I guess what I'm asking is that like, is the mentoring these players part of your job responsibility, or is that something you just do out of your heart because you love people?
No, I feel like that's something that God has called me to do. There's a lot of people in professional sports that they're so afraid to cross the line, whether it's religion or even job description. A lot of people take religion as a mental skills part of sports, but I have confronted some of the mental skills people that come into our world, and they'll give us a speech and they'll talk about this and that, and I'll say, that comes from the Bible, right? Oh yeah. Well, I was just trying to make it more secular for the like. Okay, well, I just want you to know that I want to point out that you got that from the Bible.
That's good. I love that.
It's like God invented psychology. So all the stuff that you're saying and you're trying to do, God invented that. So I have confronted some of the people that come into our world.
I don't doubt that at all. I know.
Because I'm not afraid to. I'm not saying that I'm a street corner preacher type in the clubhouse, but people know where I stand. People know that I'm a man of God and that I put God first, my family, and then my job. And I've taken a big stance in some areas of my job because of my family. And there's a lot of reasons why I don't do a lot of off-season training, speaking, things like that, because once the season's over, I'm home.
Yeah.
And I want to take care of my family. But when it comes to these guys, the weight room is a place where guys let their hair down and they come in and they complain about everything. And so over the years, I realized, man, these guys are so empty. this guy's making $20 million a year, and he is so empty, and he's struggling with his marriage, and he's struggling with his dad. There are guys at the big league level that they still have daddy issues, that their dad is trying to tell them what to hit or how to hit, and they aren't good enough. And so I've listened to all these guys over the years, and I realize there's a big hole in their life that is not going to be filled by baseball
Or money, right?
or money or fame. And so I always start by just listening and listening to what they're complaining about. Then I start kind of asking questions about their father, asking questions about their family structure, asking questions about their brothers. Do they have brothers? Are they the oldest? Are they the youngest? And so I pry a little bit into their personal life, because I always feel that we all are a product of our, upbringing. There's always something, whether you become successful or not, I still think that we all carry some of that. And I know that when it's not addressed, sometimes that can be a problem. Mm-hmm. And so, like, I always felt like I could do more for these guys, and I know that, I know that I've had an impact on them on that side, but I also know that when I do that, we connect better. And then when I do have to put my foot down and say, hey, listen, you have to work out today, they know that I care about them.
Yeah,
they know that I'm coming from a good place, and they know that I'm more than just a strength coach. And I've always prided myself in trying to get these guys to see me as, I want to say a mentor, but I don't want them to just look at me as the weight room guy.
Yeah.
Here's Jose. He wants me to work out. No, man, I just want to see how your mom is doing.
Yeah.
I just want to see how your dad is doing. Or one thing I make a habit of is, and I've been doing it for years, is two things that I do. Whenever it's their birthday, I send them a happy birthday text, no matter who it is. Former players, past players, current players, I always send them a happy birthday text. And the second thing I do is when I meet them and I get their contact information, I write down their wife's name, their kids' names.
That's good.
And so when I see them again, hey, how's little Joey?
That's awesome.
And so, how do you know? Like, yeah, well, oh yeah, he's doing great. Here's a good story for you that just it'll kind of give you an idea of how these guys are. I had a pitcher a few years ago. Came out of the game. He came in the training room and he was riding the bike, and he didn't have a very good game, so he was kind of grumpy. And so I said to him, "Hey, how's your baby girl doing?" And he goes, I'm about 280. I was like, I didn't ask you about your body weight. I asked you about your baby girl. Oh, yeah, she's doing great. And so we had this 30-minute conversation about his baby girl right after a game that he probably gave up 5 or 6 runs, and he was really angry. And so I turned the conversation about his about the game into a family thing. And she was a few months old and recently born, and he just went on and on how great she was and stuff like that. And he took his mind away from the game. Yeah. And because he's a guy that was kind of heavy set, and they're always asking him about how much he weighed, he thought that I was, because I'm the strength coach, critiquing his body weight, and that's why he pitched bad. And meanwhile, I'm like, I don't care about your body weight. I just asked you about your baby girl and how's your wife doing, how you guys doing. And so we had a long conversation about his little baby girl. And so that's the kind of stuff that I use to connect with them, have relationships with them, remind them that there are more important things than baseball.
That's good.
And so that was always a funny story that I tell, because he's like, 280?
Yeah, that's funny.
Like, I don't care how much you weigh.
He automatically assumed you were going to be asking him something about. Yeah.
Exactly. They always assume that I'm always going to ask something exercise related.
Yeah.
For the most part,
it's so funny.
I don't care.
There's such a correlation between that and what I do. So, I mean, obviously I'm just a personal trainer, but at the same time, like, I feel like a lot of times I'm almost more of a counselor than a personal trainer. Mm-hmm. People come in, especially, a lot of women, and they'll come in and they'll want to talk about their problems and what they're going through, like, almost more than like working out. You know what I mean? It's like, so there's a meme that says like what my mom thinks I do, and it's like this guy and he's like training someone. Then it says what my friends think I do, and there's a bunch of girls and they're like in small outfits and he's training. And then it says what I really do, and it has a lady laying on his couch like a psychiatrists. You know what I mean? So there's like the correlation between there's so much more when it comes to fitness and strength than just the actual exercise. You know what I mean? Like making sure people are good
And it's hard to separate the mind and the body.
yeah.
And so I've always known that. And so I refuse to treat these guys on a physical level only. I believe that we are, three in one. We're physical, mental, and spiritual. And sometimes what's keeping these guys, in my opinion, what's keeping these guys from taking it to the next level,
That's spiritual.
is the spiritual part, because that's not addressed. And so one of the things that I always do is I'll make sure there's chapel every Sunday. So I organize chapel for the team every Sunday, make sure that we have chapel everywhere we go.
That's cool.
On the road or at home. And so I'm not afraid to always tell the front office or my bosses that, hey, this guy's problem is more than just physical. He's having problems at home, or he's, this is going on. So I try to explain the spiritual as best I can, but I really believe that in order to be a success in anything, you have to address all three areas: spiritual, mental, and physical.
That's so good. I love that. It also reminds me, so a lot of teams have their own like psychiatrist, right? Don't they?
Yeah.
Or like kind of like a headspace doctor for some. So what's cool though is I feel like these players would be more open to talking to someone like you, where it's not like they're talking to a psychiatrist, but they kind of are in a way. You know what I mean? I say psychiatrist, or whatever, or like just someone that can get them thinking about other things in life. You know what I mean? It's hard when you sit down with a lot of people, if they know they're sitting down with a psychiatrist, they clam up, but with you, oh, you're just my strength coach. I can talk to you about what's going on in my life. And so you can dig that type of stuff out of them better.
Yeah. We call them, they call them, now they're calling them mental skills coaches. And yeah, sometimes, when they talk to those guys, they go in a room in an office and it's a little more formal. So some guys hesitate.
Yeah.
But I just feel like it's a necessary part of my job to be able to have those conversations. Otherwise, I can't help them with the physical.
Yeah. No, I think that's awesome, dude. One more question, last regular question before I get to what we do with everyone. What do you have? What are your plans for after coaching?
Actually, I don't know, but I know I will always be a coach. I feel like that's what God has given me. That's my gift, is to coach and teach. I love teaching exercise, but I also love teaching the Bible and explaining what God is telling me. And so I think I will always be a coach of some type.
And I like that you can connect those two things. You know what I mean? Like fitness and spiritual health and, nutritional health, all that. That's awesome. And I know that there's been nice facilities and nice places that have offered you jobs and tried to get you to come over there. So it's not like you're not going to have a bunch of options. Hopefully you get that re-up on that contract. When do you go? When's your next?
Well, I just got a 2-year extension.
Oh, so you have 2 more full seasons coming up?
4 seasons.
Heck yeah, congratulations.
23 and 24.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I knew that you got 2. I guess it's already been 2 years, hasn't it? Man, time flies. So I'm excited about these questions with you. There's 2 of them. One of them is just kind of anyone who's listening that has any kids that aspire to maybe play pro sports. It doesn't even necessarily have to be baseball. What piece of advice would you give like a father or a mother who has a kid that wants to play, or even the kid towards getting into pro ball, which I know is hard, but
the first thing I would say to the parents is listen to your kids and listen and watch to see what their passions are, what their talents are, and facilitate that. One thing that I feel is very important, especially with kids, because they might have a passion for it. They think they like something, but as soon as they try it and they fail, they're not going to want to do it, and they climb up and whatever. But I feel like listen to what your kids are wanting to do and then facilitate it. And then instead of right away, like, oh, you got to do this and you got to do that, just be patient and walk with them step by step, year by year. Kids will tell you what they want to do. And if you pay attention, if you listen closely, you'll see where their interests are and where their passions are or where their gifts are. And if you can be patient and strategic about that, then you can help them.
That's good.
But don't come on too strong as soon as your kid says, I want to be a Major League Baseball player, and then go out and get them lessons and get them the most expensive glove and this and that. Just, oh, okay, right, we'll take it one season at a time. Every season, at the end of the season, you reevaluate things. Do you still like it? How did it go for you? Did you, as a parent, compare your kid to, watch your kid play against the other kids. Is your kid as good as the other kids or not? And be realistic. Be realistic. But it takes some strategy, in my opinion, to help them. Yeah. But also for the parent, to be patient in facilitating the kid's interests.
That's awesome. That's really good advice. It reminds me of, you don't want to be that dad who's trying to relive your wish of making it somewhere, you know what I mean, or to the next level. And it doesn't have to be to professional sports. That could be anywhere. I'm just talking about in sports in general. I kind of ask that in a weird way, but you see the dads who are like driving their kids past what they want to do because they're trying to live their dream through their kids, which always leads to burnout, resentment. You know what I mean? It doesn't push. I mean, maybe sometimes it works, but I like that.
If I can say something about dads, let's talk about dads. To all the dads out there listening, there's nothing more annoying than for you to yell at your kid while they're playing. Number one, your kid does not hear what you're saying. So whatever tip you're giving him through the fence, they're not picking that up. What they're picking up is your loud voice that is disrupting them, that is disrupting their concentration. It does not help. So my advice to all dads is keep your mouth shut, watch the game. Yeah. If you want to take notes, if you want to take note of what your kid did, maybe talk about it after the game when you get in the car and stuff like that. But even then, your kid may not want to talk to you. Nobody likes to learn. Nobody learns when they're upset. So if you want to have a conversation after the game and the kid is upset and you want to tell them how to put their hands on the bat and this and that, you're not going to get anywhere. So for all those dads out there that like to yell and they think that that's the way to do it, take it from me. That doesn't work. You're wasting your breath, and it annoys the kid. It annoys the parents around you.
It annoys the coach who that's his responsibility.
It annoys the coaches. Yeah. You are wasting your time, and you're making a fool out of yourself, and you're not helping your kid. The best way to help your kid is to keep your mouth shut, cheer when it's time to cheer, be quiet when it's time to be quiet. And if your son allows it or child allows it to talk to you after the game, then talk to them. Because the game is not for you. It's for your kid. It's their career, not yours. Your career is over.
That's so good.
And by yelling, it does nothing. Just believe me, just from watching parents over the years and listening to my own Major League players talk to me about their dads and how much they hate their dad because their dad used to yell at them. Just take it from me. It does not help. And if you want to ruin your kids' careers, keep yelling through the fence.
Yeah, that's so true. That's a quick way to get them to want to quit, right?
Oh yeah, that's the best way to get them to quit.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So that's great advice. I love all that. Last one, and this is non-sports related. Okay, so unsports related. This is like my main question that I like to ask everybody. If you could give advice to 16-year-old Jose, or just a random 16-year-old today, it doesn't have to be you, just any 16-year-old. What is one piece of advice you feel that you wish you knew or that you wish you could instill in a 16-year-old kid? Or let's say, that's good enough. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What can I say, two?
Yeah. Two pieces of or five, yeah.
Number one is identify your passion. And I know that's cliche, but it has to be something that you go to sleep thinking about it. You wake up in the morning thinking about it. That's how you know your passion. You know, one thing that I do every day, pretty much without failure, is I read my Bible and I read something about training, nutrition, training, something. When I'm bored in the doctor's office, I pull out my phone. I'm reading an article on training. I'm reading the Bible. You know, those are the things that I'm into. That's my passion. So I'm constantly doing it. So if you find yourself with something that you think about all the time, as long as it's legal, that's your passion. You know, so number one, all successful people have a passion and they have an itch that just you cannot scratch, and you're doing it all the time naturally. And number two, don't take yourself so serious because you're going to fail.
That's good.
And so when you fail, there's a lesson in the failure. And if you take it so serious, you're going to be so upset and so angry and so disappointed that you're going to miss the opportunity to fail. And so one of the things that I struggled with as a 16-year-old is I wanted to go pro at 16, you know, like I wanted to get to the next level and this and that. And I was so hard on myself that I would get so angry that I couldn't see what I was doing wrong. I couldn't see what I was doing wrong with my sport because I was so angry. And so I've learned that in order for you to learn, you must fail. And in order for you to learn from that failure, you have to be in a frame of mind that is relaxed and calm and not upset and angry. And so most of us, when we fail, we get angry, we throw our hat or helmet, we throw the club or whatever. Okay, sometimes that happens, but my opinion is just don't take yourself so serious because you might miss the lesson.
No, that's awesome. And to go back to the first one that you said about having the passion, there's going to be days, and even if it is what you're passionate about, there's going to be days where you don't feel like practicing, you don't feel like reading, you don't feel like studying. But when you do have that passion, you're able to still get it done because you have a passion for it. You know what I mean? It's like, and I think that's so important. I think that really is good, especially when a kid is trying to figure out what he wants to do in life. You know, like, don't be driven so much by money. Like, how much money am I going to make? You know, because that's fleeting, right? Let's say you get the money, you can lose it or you might not, but having passion is something that you feel that you can actually like bring value through, you know? So I think that's awesome. I think that's really it, dude. I'm really appreciative of you doing this with me, Jose. I look up to you, man. I love waking up in the morning and doing these Bible studies with you. Mm-hmm. Like, you're probably the only person that I'm like, oh my God, I got to get this Bible study done. You know, like the accountability of doing it with you. And I got to do yesterday's right now because I'm behind. But dude, I love you, man. I really do. Your family is awesome. Thank you so much for doing this for me. Do you have anything you want to say before we?
No, I just want to say that thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah.
I pray that somebody got something out of this podcast. I really believe that God has given me a lot of opportunities to impact people, and I like to think that every day I can make a difference in somebody's life. And so hopefully through this podcast and some of the things that I said and some of my experience, somebody gets inspired, motivated, and somebody's life changes because of something they listened to or something they heard today. So
yeah, no, it's awesome, man. I'm really glad you got 2 more seasons with the team. Hopefully that keeps going. And again, man, thank you. And people will definitely get something out of this, especially dads. I know that you gave some really good advice that I think is going to really help, especially dads watching their kids play. And then hearing it from someone of your level makes people think, oh, man, like this guy knows what he's talking about. Maybe I should relax with the way I treat my kids. But that's it, dude. Thank you guys for listening. If my next episode is going to be where I'm going to answer a bunch of questions, and we already have a bunch of good ones. The same question keeps coming in over and over again, so I'm probably going to touch it. But forgivenafpodcast@gmail.com if you have any questions that you want us to answer. And if the website, secondchancementors.com, we can always use support. So if you go to the website and scroll down to the bottom, there's like different ways to get involved and different help. But that's it. I want you guys to remember that you're forgiven, that you're loved, and there's nothing you can do about it. Have a good day, you guys.